I'm Dana Denha, and you're watching FYI. Every year, we try to capture automotive history at the Rolling Sculpture Car Show. This one-of-a-kind show features nearly 300 cars of varying types. Check out this year's Real Steel.
For over 2 decades, engines have been purring as classic, antique, and exotic cars fill the downtown during the Rolling Sculpture Car Show.
We're at a great auto show in downtown Ann Arbor where people can come out and see cars that they have never seen or cars that they grew up with.
Rolling Sculpture is the place to see cars so elusive, you may have thought they'd gone extinct.
My car is very special. It's a very early production car. Austin and Healey got together in 1953 to make the Austin Healey 100-4, and that's what my car is. The 100 stands or was given the designation because they wanted the car to go 100 miles an hour, and the 4 was it was a 4-cylinder engine.
Maxwell was originally around since 1908, and in 1920 they weren't doing so well, so they hired Walter P. Chrysler to turn the company around for $100,000 a year, which was a lot of money back then. And so he took 21 off, completely redesigned the car and the engineering, and then in 1924, Walter Chrysler bought out the rest of Maxwell, and at the end of that year, he released Chrysler.
This is a 1940 Nash Lafayette. In 1940, the Nash Corporation experimented with convertibles, so they made 50 of them. And there's 4 left known to the Nash Society. 2 of them are street rods and 2 have been restored original. This is one of the street rods.
It's a great environment for a car show. There's lots of people, great community that you can talk to, and it's a good variety of cars to come out.
Stay tuned, and we'll be back shortly with more news and information. In many ways, music can be healing. Depending on the mood, it can make you happy, introspective, or just give you some energy. One local drummer is bringing the healing power of music to anyone interested on a monthly basis. Take a look.
The Interfaith Center for Spiritual Growth hosts a drum and dance jam led by Glatter.
Drumming is actually the oldest language in the history of the world. Even before we started speaking languages, we started communicating by drum. Cities by cities would actually start communicating if somebody was born or if they were having their child graduate from high school or just learn a new language. They would actually communicate using drums to send messages across communities.
To keep this form of communication alive, Curtis welcomes all to join the jam.
A lot of times people bring their children, but also there are professional drummers that come to the drum circle as well. So they want to learn more about the drummers that are here. And the musicians also show up, like flute players and violin players. The spirituality involves allowing yourself to just relax and also work your right and left hand as well as finger techniques. The reason it's a spiritual drum circle is because we don't require any techniques. We just allow people to jam as they wish.
Don't miss your last chance to join the jam session on Saturday, August 4th at 7:30 p.m. at the Interfaith Center for Spiritual Growth. The Ann Arbor Farmers Market is in full bloom. Learn all the tips for shopping locally from a market insider in this month's City Roundup in 60.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Willett. I'm the Ann Arbor Farmers Market Manager. We are here right now at the Carytown District neighborhood at the Ann Arbor Farmers Market. Ann Arbor Market has been around since 1919 and is over 98 years old. So I really encourage you to come out and visit us this summer. We are open year-round, Saturdays and Wednesdays from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Right now we have so much local produce that's fresh, local, and all of our vendors grow their own products. You can find vegetables here, but you can also find artisans, you can find bread, meat, cheese, crafts. stop in our office and you can swipe your credit card to receive market bucks and market money to spend. Also, if you have an EBT or bridge card, we can give you market money to spend here with that, plus double your bucks for free with our Double Up Food Buck program. Come take a look. We have corn, heirloom tomatoes, things you won't be able to find in the store right now. It's so fresh. Visit us at a2gov.org/market.
There are changes on the horizon when it comes to recycling in Ann Arbor. For years, we were in limbo as to what was going to happen to our reusables. Now that Recycle Ann Arbor has taken the reins, we are seeing some positive change. There's still a challenging road ahead, but with the right leadership, we have the potential to become the innovators we once were in the industry. Joining me is Bryan Ukena, CEO of Recycle Ann Arbor. Well, first I'd like to welcome you to Ann Arbor. It's just been a couple weeks that you've been here.
It has been a little over 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's been a wonderful experience.
How does it feel to kind of take over as CEO of Recycle Ann Arbor?
It is so exciting. It is such an honor. I've been watching Recycle Ann Arbor for 15 years probably, and it is such an honor to be able to take on the role of CEO here.
Well, I mentioned in my intro that at one point Ann Arbor was kind of an innovator in recycling, but you are kind of an innovator too. You've started recycling in communities. Can you talk about your background?
Sure. I started in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and I was one of a 7-member committee, a volunteer committee that wanted to get recycling going in the mid-'80s in Arkansas, which is tough. It was a big hill to climb, but
I even think in 2018 with some cities it's a challenge.
It is. It's always a challenge because this is a very personal thing that's happening here, people recycling, and so there are a number of different issues. It's not just about picking up stuff off the street. There's a lot of issues, but in Eureka Springs it was a community similar to Ann Arbor in that it was a progressive community, and there were a lot of really supportive grassroots organizations that really wanted to see something happen. So we pulled all those folks together, and we went down to Little Rock, which is the main city in Arkansas, and we talked to then Governor Clinton. And people say they have open door policies as leaders. Literally, Governor Clinton's door was open, and we walked right in, and we told him we needed some money for recycling, and we needed a grants program, and this is what we wanted to do. And he really helped us pilot through getting that first program set up in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. It started with a flatbed truck and picking up cardboard curbside, and it moved into having a full-blown recycling facility where we actually found out that community wasn't big enough to support that type of processing facility, so we actually brought in all the cities in the county and created a solid waste authority, and then the whole county was able to use the facility and recycle, so everyone got to benefit from it, and that was how I started recycling.
That's amazing. That is an amazing story.
It was a fun time.
I can't believe that, I mean, just as grassroots, you guys got the whole county recycling.
We did. I think it was directly attributed to the fact that people wanted to do it, that there was a desire, that there was the grassroots organizations were there to help with the various pieces of education and advocacy and things like that, and that it just made so much sense. And I think people in Arkansas, I'm from Arkansas, people in Arkansas are very common sense people and understand that it's really dumb to throw stuff away when we could reuse it. So
well, and it's amazing too to think about it in the 80s. Like, I was just a baby in the 80s, so obviously I didn't really think about recycling then. But
Sure.
even like now, thinking about the 80s, there was no way. There was no recycling going on.
There
where I
wasn't.
was.
There wasn't
Yeah.
a lot, and most of the recycling that happened was from nonprofit organizations that were willing to take that chance and sort of get out on the edge and say, we want to do it and we'll make it work. And they used school buses and flatbed trucks and anything that they had available to them to make it happen. And they really led the way to allow municipalities and private entities like Waste Management and big multinationals to be able to do those collections. It started very much from the grassroots.
What started your passion for recycling? Because it seems like it maybe was before you actually got Eureka Springs started.
It was. There were 2 big events that happened to me in my life that were that altered me, and one was my grandparents were from Oklahoma, and grew up on the farm and lived through the Dust Bowl and lived through the Depression, and very much understood and ingrained in me the importance of not wasting. And that meant you don't waste people, you don't waste money, you don't waste resources. Waste isn't a smart thing to do, and we don't have a lot here in Oklahoma, so we need to make sure we don't waste it. And so that was very much ingrained in me and the farm. And then the second event was I decided I was going to go down to Key West in Florida and have an adventure. So I bought a 1961 Airstream travel trailer and hooked it up to my big old Cadillac, my 1972 Coupe de Ville Cadillac. And I drove down to Key West, Florida, and I put my Airstream down, and I had no space for anything. So I was very much aware of what I was throwing away. And every night the sun would set in Key West, and there are beautiful sunsets in Key West, but it would sunset over this giant pile, and I couldn't figure out what that pile was. And so finally I went to figure out what that pile was. It was the incinerator ash pile. So all the waste from all Key West in that area, they were burning, and they put it in this, just the ash from the waste was huge. It was the tallest structure in Key West at the time.
That's crazy.
And I was watching the sunset over it, and I said, this is not right.
Yeah.
There's a better way to do it. So I went back. So in Key West, you work during the winter, and then you come back. I came back to Arkansas, and that's when I joined up with that committee and said, there's got to be a better way to do it. So those were the two big events for me.
And since then, you've had a long career in recycling.
I have. I've been in the field in the movement. I call it a movement for over 30 years.
How have you seen it change over time?
A lot, yeah. Like I said, from that very much grassroots organizations, very much how are we going to fix this? How are we going to make this work? Let's get a concrete block and put it on a pulley, and that's how we'll crush the glass. And very much from those humble beginnings to very sophisticated single stream, which is how we collect here in Ann Arbor. Facilities that have optic sorters and magnets and reverse magnets and lots of electronics and multi-millions of dollars. So that part of the industry has really changed. I think we've gone through sort of a bell curve of awareness about the power of recycling. I think people sort of think, at this point, they think, oh, recycling, check done. Of course you recycle.
Yeah.
And that sort of relaxed attitude about recycling has really damaged recycling. And I think the other thing is that people don't understand the connection between climate change and the effect that recycling can actually, the positive effect that recycling can have. It's one of the single biggest things you can do in your house, compost and recycle, that to reduce your carbon footprint. I would say, I don't have the exact numbers, but you can install solar panels to enhance your carbon footprint, but just recycling and composting has one of the largest effects, and it's something you can do every single day.
And
so
really,
that's really
when
changed.
we were talking before the show about how we have our bins in Ann Arbor, your garbage bin should be the emptiest.
The last
Every week that should be the emptiest one, because we can recycle so much stuff here, and we can compost our food now. So
that's right. And once you take that ick factor out of your food waste in there, you can start really looking in the bottom of your recycling bin or your garbage bin and saying, what am I throwing away? What kind of packaging could I swap that for that I could recycle or compost or avoid altogether? And I think that's the aha moment that people have, is when they get the icky part out and they get all the recycling done and they look at how small their bin is. Then all of a sudden your awareness changes about what's important. All of a sudden garbage pickup becomes less important, and recycling and composting pickup becomes the more important component. So that's a big and a lot of opportunity in Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor's program is very comprehensive right now.
So right now, coming into Recycle Ann Arbor, what kind of challenges are you facing with the recycling program?
I think it's, awareness is a huge factor, and people just sort of that sort of relaxed attitude about, of course we do recycling, but wait, there's a lot of pressure to in other directions to just go to a more market-based system. So I think that's a big challenge that we have. I think, addressing that challenge in Ann Arbor's similar to addressing it in any community, but I think you really have to understand the community and touch people and reach people where they live, to really be able to make that change. So huge opportunity in Arbor because there's such a high awareness of all kinds of environmental issues in Ann Arbor and a real willingness to do that. So I think the opportunity in that is really pushing that envelope and getting us to zero waste, which is ultimately what we're trying to do. Recycle Ann Arbor isn't about just driving more trucks around and picking up more recyclables. It's really about, it's sort of an entry point for people's awareness to think, what am I throwing away or recycling in the first place, and how can I avoid that? And really moving as a society and as a community to closer and closer to zero waste, because at Recycle Ann Arbor we believe that waste is absolutely preventable, that it is not inevitable. And that sounds crazy. Some people think that's crazy.
Yeah.
Of course, there's always going to be waste, but if you look at nature, not so much. Everything becomes a byproduct for the next thing. And that's what Recycle Ann Arbor is really about. And that's what sets us apart from other Republic or other private waste haulers, is that we really believe that when we recycle, we're in pursuit of zero waste. We're not in pursuit of recycling more stuff, although recycling more stuff is really important. So that's a big challenge too, is changing people's awareness about recycling isn't the solution. Recycling is part of the solution.
Yeah.
And that's a big challenge that we have in Ann Arbor. I think the other challenges are just, economic ones. The markets for recyclables have really changed in the last year and a half. China has determined that they can't accept our highly contaminated recyclables that we're sending them overseas. When we move to, a lot of people will remember two-stream recycling, which is your paper went in one bin and your containers went in the other bin. There was less contamination because they weren't mixed up.
Yeah.
And now they're mixed up, so it's harder to pull that contamination apart. You need a fancier facility to do that. So what we need to do now is rely locally on those markets. And that's really what's happened, is the market prices for commodities like plastic and paper and stuff, those recyclables, has really gone way down. And it's presented a lot of economic challenges. But the opportunity in that is that instead of that material going to China, we're looking at what we can do here in Michigan. Where are the paper mills? Where are the plastic mills? How can we keep this stuff locally? And Recycle Ann Arbor is all about keeping that stuff as local as we can and creating jobs as locally as we can. So,
speaking of locally, we're just about out of time, and I know you've only been on the job for a couple weeks, but I think the big question everyone always is thinking about is, what about the MRF? Are we going to see our recyclables being sorted in Ann Arbor again?
I hope so. We're taking our leadership from the city, and the city has a lot of components that they have to look at. But I think there's a discussion, and Recycle Ann Arbor is part of that discussion about sort of maybe the city and county working together, or working more regionally to try to get enough material together so that a facility can operate efficiently. And that's what I'd like to see, is creating those jobs, and so not just creating jobs, but creating good living wage jobs where people are safe when they go to work. And so we hope so, and we're part of that dialogue, and we'd like to see that.
All right, Bryan. Well, it sounds like our future is bright here in Ann Arbor with you at the helm of Recycle Ann Arbor, and I would love to have you back in the future after you've had like a little more time on the job and see where things are going.
Sure, I'd love to come back. Thank you.
All right, thank you. For more on this and other programs, visit a2gov.org/watchctn. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time to FYI.